So there are two surprises today. The first one is that I have a French watch. Oh, actually, hang on. I've had loads of French watches on the channel lately, so that's no surprise. Okay, strike that. I do, however, have a watch today that's so different to what I normally wear and review, which, once again, is a great aspect of this hobby. There are just so many different shapes and sizes, literally something for everyone. Marchlab is a brand I knew nothing about until they got in touch. And I even had a video chat with Axel in Paris before going any further. As it turns out, Marchlab is quite a well-known brand in France and sits somewhere in the mid-range, not quite the extreme luxury of Rolex and Omegas, but perhaps closer to the likes of Oris, Zinn and even Hamilton and Mido. As we'll discover today, these watches have a lot of injected personality that you do need to be on board for. To give you a couple examples, both the color green and the number 3 are important to the founders of the brand. An immediate example of that is that the 3 in the date wheel is green, and there's more of that later on in my review. You also have some very unusual indices, placement of the crown, and honestly many other things, including a brand name that's made up again of a month that happens to be the 3rd of the year, Los Angeles in the US, and Biarritz in France. So you're either on board with all these little fun details or you're not. I invite you to watch the full review before you make your mind up, and I can also highly recommend visiting the website linked here, since one thing that the color green lends itself well to is bronze, and there are some awesome bronze editions on the site. The AM2 Slim Automatic in white is their best-selling model, so I thought that it would be an interesting one to borrow and introduce to all of you that had never heard of the brand. If this is a shape and approach that's different to what you normally go for also, then why not broaden your perspective and stick around for a full rundown. I don't always film packaging, but this is a great example of where first impressions makes a difference. The green theme is prevalent, and you get some nice little intro brochures, a metal warranty card and a great patch that you could reuse. I say reuse, but you and I know that it'll go back in the box forever, but the thought is nice. A watch like this is so much more than size alone, and there's no question that these dimensions may scare you away, but just look at how it sits on my 19cm wrist before you rush to conclusions. The diameter I measure at 35.2mm and lug to lug at 40.8mm. It's 11mm thick and lug width is a handy 20mm, so you can likely pair this with many of your existing straps, which I'll also do in this review. The weight is 67 gram and we get 100 meter water resistance. Square watches can be small but still look impressive on the wrist. So let's get a close look at this dial. Honestly, the first thing that I noticed was that the 11, 1 and 5 and 7 indices are ever so slightly offset and not exactly horizontal. At first glance this can look like a mistake, but that's until you notice that both the angle on the left and right is exactly matched on the opposite side of the dial. What makes this extra interesting is that you seriously have to get very close to even notice this. A casual glance will not give it away. The applied logo is hard to miss and very clear even from a distance. The brand name is printed and also large enough to be read. Definitely a statement. At just about the 6 we get automatic and made in France. A strong frame around the date complication helps with legibility, and I actually think the date complication looks quite good here. It suits the watch with another strong square that complements such a distinct case design. All indices are applied around the clock face and the minute markers are stacked around the dial and angled appropriately. These tuned fork-shaped hands is another cool detail that gets more interesting the closer you get, and I like them very much. But there is an issue with the loom application, which I'll come back to. They do appear to be able to slot straight into the indices, which is a nice little detail. Overall though, this watch face is fun and interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if wearing this you get a few comments, and when you can reply explaining that you're pioneering a French brand that's looking to spread their wings around the world, they might earn you some extra points in the sophistication department. The stainless steel case is quite something, and even in the very own words of the brand, it has been designed with aggressive ultra-beveled angles. No question that they are exactly that, but they work. This is not a particularly shouty case, to me anyway, despite the polished angles and brushed sides. It will definitely catch a lot of light and attention, and honestly, this is probably why you bought it, right? The case secured a domed sapphire crystal as you would expect. One problem with these high polished surfaces is that if you even breathe on them too hard, you'll scratch it. I managed to already, despite always being extra careful with loan watches. I like a bit of wear on my watches, but if you want one and do not, then get the Glad wrap out, I'd say. The placement of the push-pull large crown at the 4 position once again breaks away from pure dress watch territory. It's signed and knurled using some of the intersecting lines from the logo. Normally with a watch like this, you'd expect a small and fiddly crown at the 3 and not a large crown at the dive watch position, which is another up yours to conventional watch design. Flipping the watch over, there's another very green detail in the green coloured see-through case back. We get a full view of the La Joux Parade G100 movement with a customized rotor and a very good power reserve of 68 hours, not to mention being regulated to operate at tolerances of -4 to +6 seconds. I put this watch down and been surprised a few days later when it's still ticking. This movement is machined in Switzerland but assembled in France. The green continues in the green leather backing of this excellent black leather strap. We get a signature cross stitch at the base of the sign buckle, a stamped logo and Made in France text on the back of the strap. This is an excellent quality strap that they have made in the Comte region of France. Thankfully, if you do want to try something else, this is easy with quick release spring bars. I had 2 straps lying around with quick release bars which I wanted to use since the tolerances on the lugs are quite tight. The first one is a strap from my Swedish friends at Tusenö. A green suede strap suits this watch very nicely. What do you think? The next one I had lying around was a grey suede-like strap from Deluxe, which I also think looked pretty good with the watch. It is amazing as per usual how much it can change up the look of any watch just to change over the strap. The loom leaves a lot to be desired, to be perfectly honest. The pips around the edges are excellent, but the hands are woefully inadequate, I'm afraid. As I mentioned, I love getting exposed to unusual and fun watches, and I must admit, when I first got the email and had a look, I wasn't too excited. However, researching the brand, chatting to my new friend, the passionate Axel, not to mention spending some time with the watch myself, I get it. This is popular in France for a reason and is truly unisex. You'd see this on jet-setting men and women in Monaco, and you'd likely see it on suburban commuters on the metro in Paris. Much like Beau Bleu that I covered before, there's so much personality injected into the watches. And perhaps that's what we need these days, where noisy and annoying smartwatches are everywhere and purely mechanical devices with no circuit boards or touchscreens are literally a thing of the past. I don't know if I've changed your mind or managed to get you excited about an unusual square by design but not by nature watch from France, but I hope so. You can get this shape from around $680 all the way up to this particular model with its fancy movement at around $1,650. It's totally up to you how much you value your mechanical hearts. I'd love to see more March Lab watches on more wrists in the future, and I would love to hear from you in the comments about your first impressions. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.